Today, let's explore some topics surrounding the recent wave of wearable AI devices that have emerged, from their inspiration to the challenges they face and their future potential. So, to begin with, we should take a look at the intention of these portable AI devices and then explore some of the inspirations behind them. It should be reasonable to say that the intention behind these devices is to act as some sort of crossover between a piece of wearable tech and a virtual personal assistant. Now, the inspiration behind wearable tech has been around for a very long time. If you're old enough to remember the old Star Trek TV show, you might recall the crew in the show used to wear these metallic looking communicator badges on their clothing. These badges acted like a sort of mobile phone, as well as a translator, where the person wearing it would tap on the badge and be able to communicate with someone who is in a completely different location. And this was one of the more memorable examples of a wearable device from the past. But a few decades later, we saw the first types of wearable devices out in the real world. One of these was the Casio wristwatch, which was essentially a calculator that you could wear like a watch, and it was probably one of the first versions of a wearable computer, most likely an inspiration for other devices later, like the Apple Watch and the Fitbit. Now, the second group of inspiration belongs to these virtual personal assistants, and again, these have been out there in science fiction land for a very long time. But they've started over the last several decades to become more established in reality. You probably remember Jarvis from Iron Man, which was a form of artificial intelligence that helped Tony Stark with whatever he needed, or Hal from 2001 A Space Odyssey. Of course, we all have our own virtual personal assistants that we might be familiar with, even if we don't use them much. Just look on your phone. You've probably got a voice activated assistant like Siri, or you might have a portable smart speaker like an Amazon Alexa or a Google HomePod. And these are devices that let you talk to them, and in turn, they give you some kind of a response. Or they can take a certain action based on your prompt within a reasonable set of parameters. So, with these two categories in mind, we can assume that these wearable AI companies are looking to create a virtual assistant that is easily accessible and with you at all times. Now that we've briefly looked at the history and general premise of wearable AI devices, let's look at some of the issues currently being faced by these companies in the market. And the first set of problems is technical, or more specifically, related to the functionality of these devices. You see, at the moment, they are somewhat restricted in what they can deliver to the user. They tend not to have a wide range of functionality, and they're also often slow in their response times, and other features quite often aren't working very well at all. An example of that is the hologram feature from the Humane AI pin, which doesn't seem to work outside in the daylight. But the second set of problems are much more meaningful because these relate to the people that these companies are trying to sell their products to. You see, the technical problems might get ironed out over time, and these products may very well improve in their functionality. But the bigger issue is to look at the lack of use cases in the world for these products. In previous videos, we've discussed starting with a person's need or problem or desire and trying to solve or meet that in a creative way to generate value. But when it comes to these wearable AI devices, it's very unclear what problem they're trying to solve or desire they're trying to meet. And as an exercise, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a customer who's discovering this device for the first time. They're probably thinking, what would I use this for? Or what benefit is it to me? Aside from the very real issue of not solving a need or providing a desirable want, these products are currently still in a stage where the way humans can interact with them is unfamiliar and uncomfortable. A key issue that people have with voice activated interfaces is that they're pretty awkward to use in public, and these devices are typically intended for everyday use, so when you're out and about. Now, perhaps one day we'll be so used to the idea of talking to machines that we won't feel self-conscious doing so in public, but for the moment, this is still a barrier that a user will have a very hard time overcoming. This brings us to an even bigger point, which is the market competition. It might look like these devices are innovative and unique, but most of us are pretty aware that there's an existing incumbent device that has been dominating the market for decades now. And that device is the smartphone. Most phones have some form of virtual personal assistant inbuilt, not to mention every application you could need, as well as access to the internet and multiple forms of communication to other people. As a side note, it's almost irrelevant to call these things phones anymore, as that's pretty much their least used function. So, from a user's perspective, why would they consider buying a device that essentially does less than what they can currently do with pretty much any smartphone? So, in order for these wearable AI devices to thrive and capture a decent amount of market share, they'll need to identify or generate some valuable use cases that they could be best suited for, as opposed to a smartphone or a smart speaker. And to be fair, there might very well be some existing use cases where these devices could be very helpful. If we look back around a decade or so ago, QR codes emerged as an interesting idea, but with no real valuable use case in the real world. And it wasn't until the pandemic forced everyone to rely on contactless ordering and payment methods that QR codes suddenly became useful. There's a chance that these wearable AI devices can also go down this route in the future as well. So, in order for these wearable AI devices to potentially have a long shelf life into the future, the companies making them will really need to spend some time evaluating what are the meaningful use cases that these devices can deliver on that a mobile phone or smart speaker can't. And that's about as simple as it is, really, but it's also as complex as that. I do believe there could be some interesting use cases out there, perhaps in the medical fields related to those who might be struggling with disabilities or other kinds of niches. But these companies really need to explore what those could be. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it, and subscribe to the channel to keep it safe from our AI overlords. And if you're working within the creative, technology, or innovation industries, follow the channel where we'll be sharing more thoughts like this one, as well as videos on how to build meaningful, creative, and business ventures. See you next time.